On February 3rd, 1857, a child named James Claiborne Mosley, otherwise known as Clabe, was born in Kentucky. Born into a cabin nestled against the mountains, his mother was Mary Polly Moore, and his father was Nathaniel Mosley. Life was tough in these parts, where the wilderness held more sway than the law. Survival was a daily grind, but the family grew strong together. Clabe grew into a happy and healthy young man. One day he met Polly Terry, a girl that caught his eye. They were soon married in March of 1881. As the years rolled by, the children arrived. They had 10 children together, and the cabin grew more crowded. But time took its toll, and the seasons began to show their marks on Polly, and she died January 6, 1946, at 80 years old. After Polly's passing, the color drained from Claude's world. He turned to the one constant in his life, his faith. In the quiet of his small house adjacent to his daughter's home at Topmost on Right Beaver Creek, he devoted himself to his role as an old regular Baptist preacher. His voice was a voice that echoed through the Kentucky valleys, carrying the word of God to all who would listen. Clabe was also well known for being rather long-winded at times, and he is said to have preached for 2 or 3 hours on his last birthday. The old regular Baptists frequently engaged in the practice of what was called singing down a long-winded preacher. But from all the stories and tales, Clabe was never sung down. For those of you who do not know that expression, it means that when a preacher was considered to be preaching too long by other preachers, they would begin a song and sing until the preacher in question got the point and quit preaching. Clabe was a preacher for over 70 years, preaching at endless funerals and officiated at numerous weddings, yet never would take a dime. He remained steadfast in his beliefs, and in his cabin there was no television that ever flickered within its walls. The only music that resonated through the cabin was an occasional hymn song in a low, solemn tone. The radio remained silent, a relic of a world too noisy and complex for his tastes. Instead, he found solace in the creaking of the floorboards and the sound of the wind outside. Clabe was well known for refusing to eat meat, which had been bought at a store, since it might have came from animals that were unclean or unhealthy, or the meat may have been dead for too long. One day, Clabe went to his best-known local coffin maker and requested to have his coffin made in an older keyhole fashion. By keyhole, we mean that the widest point of the coffin was roughly where the shoulders of the deceased would be located. From that point, the sides of the coffin tapered in both directions towards the head and the feet. These are a common type of coffin you still see sometimes in old Western movies. They were going out of style by the time Clabe died, but they were still in limited use at the time he chose to have his made. So the story goes, when the coffin maker finished the job and sent word to Clabe that the coffin was complete, Clabe got someone to take him, since he never learned to drive, and he went to pay for and pick up his coffin. It is said that Clabe inspected the coffin and said, "Well, it looks pretty good to me, but I reckon I better check it out." So he took off his shoes, climbed into the coffin, crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and after a short while said, "Yep, I reckon that's about right." And he paid the coffin maker. When Clabe died at age 102, he was buried in the Turner Cemetery, which is located on the ridge right above the location of the no longer existing house in which the coffin hung for many years. He also left explicit instructions about his headstone. He told one of his sons, Crawford Mosley, to build it by constructing a wooden form in the shape seen, and to carve the elaborate epitaph into the rapidly drying concrete. The rectangular depression seen in the tombstone originally held a photo of Clabe Mosley, which was covered with a piece of cut glass. But because it was not properly sealed, the photo did not last long, and the glass eventually broke off and was lost. But the entire inscription reads, "Birth, February 3rd, 1857. Death, May 1st, 1959. Joined Caney FC, Caney Fork Church, 1884. A regular Baptist. Was ordained to preach 70 years ago and have preached or tried to preach the gospel. It is said that many people have marveled at the inscription, the homemade headstone, and the entire story of Clabe Mosley. When he had his son Crawford inscribe the words, preached or have tried to preach the gospel, Clabe was taking what was a common position during his lifetime in the old regular Baptist church, that all men are imperfect and anyone can make a mistake. It has been said by people that remember him, Clabe Mosley was one of the most interesting humans they had ever met. Sadly, everything comes to an end, and today we are here to remember Clabe and Polly one more time. A man who touched so many lives with his unwavering faith and unyielding spirit. I'm sure they are in heaven together now, so no need to weep. Surely they are better off than we are.
Whispering pine.
Whispering pine, yeah. The wind's got a little bite to it. No matter where you go, there's always an airplane. Ooh, it's chilly. And here he is.
Say.
Born February 3rd, 1857, died May 1st, 1959. Clabe Mosley. Joined Caney
FC.
1884, a regular Baptist, was ordained to preach 70 years ago and have preached or tried to preach the gospel.
Huh.
And he's buried in his coffin that he wanted. Stone, actually, you know, I saw it on Find a Grave, but in person it's a lot bigger and it's pretty neat. But either way, we wanted to come out here and just see Clabe in person, and I'm sure he's in a much better place far away from here. P-O-L-Y. Like the same type of headstone as Clabe with the...
Yeah, the same paint. Has that same paint. And his is over right there, though. His is right over there. So they're what, about 75 feet apart?
Yeah, so Clabe's right over...
Yeah, he's that one right
here.
There, the white one.
So it definitely pays to come out and do these in person, because they just, you know, does it really matter that much? Well, to some people.
If you're one of the descendants and you ever go looking for Polly Mosley, here's to you.
Well, and the confusing part is too that if you did Find a Grave, most people would put it in how it's spelled, and her name Polly Ann. So this wouldn't even come up in the Find a Grave search.
Really? Just
No.
happened to walk up on it.
This is a really beautiful cemetery. Just don't go down there. They have a ferocious German Shepherd. Looks like, sounds like it'll tear you a new one. All right, just we stumbled across that one to point it out, but the wind's starting again, so
Yeah.
see you guys next time.